All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's episode, we look at week 2 of the NHL preseason, also week 2 of training camp and how these teams are kind of developing, go over some injury news, see how some of the younger guys have kind of gotten to the lineup, see what rookies are really performing in preseason. So a lot of things to cover. Let's get into it. All right, so the first news, probably the biggest news of last week is Drew Doughty. Drew Doughty's injury, fractured ankle, broken ankle, so he'll be out for pretty much half of the season, leaving that number 1 defensive pairing spot open next to Mikey Anderson. There's a couple guys that probably stock are going up. I would say Kyle Burroughs is probably going to take his place. It's either going to be him or Jordan Spence. It really depends on how the Kings go with this injury and who's going to be the best replacement for Drew Doughty. Brant Clark, I don't think it's going to be him next to Mikey Anderson. I was listening to 32 Thoughts and Elliot Friedman was saying that they really want to play Brant Clark with Joel Edmondson as much as this year, as much as possible, just to try to get his development in the NHL. They want to do it the right way and they don't want to change any part of the plan. So I think we're going to see Jordan Spence's stock increased the most from this Drew Doughty injury. I've talked about him in the breakout defenseman. He is a perfect offensive defenseman, a guy who can take over this role. Kyle Burroughs will replace him and play probably next to Mikey Anderson, but now there won't be as much time played, or the difference between the Gavrikov-Spence line and the Mikey Anderson-Burroughs line, the time discrepancy won't be a ton. And that first spot in the power play is going to be open at this point. There'll probably be tryouts considering, you have Brant Clark and Jordan Spence who will probably contend for that spot. All right, the next injury we need to talk about is Patrik Laine. The Patrik Laine injury, brutal. Obviously, I'm a Habs fan too, so it's just terrible to see. I was so excited to see Patrik Laine in a Habs jersey and see how many goals he'd be able to score. Cedric Paré, that's for you, buddy. Brutal way for Laine to kind of enter the zone. Like, his feet were really wide, but just a stupid fucking play by Paré there. It didn't really seem like he had a ton of remorse. Awesome to see what Jack-Eye did after as a Habs fan, obviously, but terrible. Obviously, everyone had really high hopes for Laine. Kind of heartbreaking to see. The guy hasn't played a full season in I don't know how long, probably since he was with the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know if there's anyone really that's stock goes up with Laine out. Maybe Cole Caulfield, but I even thought having Laine was a good decoy for Cole Caulfield, as they don't key in on him too much, especially on that power play. If you have both of those guys, you have 2 absolute snipers. So that changes things for sure. It hurts them in the goal scoring factor ability. We don't know how long Laine is out at this point, but there's no chance it's not either for the season. His knee looked destroyed during the hit, and it usually doesn't look that bad on the ice, and it's the timetable is usually a year. So I'm just going to assume he's out for the season at this point. So fantasy-wise, I'm not really looking elsewhere on that second line. I don't think there's anyone worth drafting in terms of Kirby Dach or Alex Newhook at this point. But Cole Caulfield, you got to think his stock rises just tiny. All right, one thing on a lot of Boston Bruins fans' minds is that Jeremy Swayman contract. What's going to happen? Is he going to sign? And honestly, from what I've read and what I've heard, it does not seem like anything is going to get done anytime soon. Jimmy Murphy, one of the reporters for the Bruins, said on a podcast earlier this week, he thinks it's going to go to December 1st. So if he doesn't get anything done within these 2 weeks, he thinks it'll go all the way till December 1st, which is nuts. And I think Swayman's already frustrated from last year having to go to arbitration, playing a great year, and them not giving him the contract he obviously thinks he deserves at this point. So I don't see them getting a deal done in this training camp or preseason. Even if they do, how motivated is Swayman gonna play if they don't get a deal done, let's say? If they don't get a deal done and Swayman's October 8th comes along, he's like, okay, I'm gonna play. How motivated is he gonna be until December 1st so he can get that first deal back? And he's gonna come in cold with no preseason, no training camp. So Jeremy Swayman's stock just has to go down at this point because you just don't know when he's going to play, and there's no point of gambling on those draft picks. Korpisalo's stock certainly goes up because he's going to get the starters crease, and then they'll probably bring up someone from the AHL who's I don't think is going to be worth drafting at this point, obviously. Even Korpisalo I'm worried about. Boston defensively, how good are they going to be? I think last year their numbers were really skewed because of how good Allmark and Swayman were. Or Korpisalo into that mix, I don't know how well that'll work, especially in a team that's a little bit distraught right now over their goaltending situation. So Swayman's stock definitely going down. Korpisalo's go up. Definitely worth a late round draft pick as your third goalie, let's say, but nothing too high to kind of cement on your hockey team. All right, so this preseason, the rookies have really been honestly at the forefront. I would say there's just a really good crop of them vying for the Calder Trophy this year. Obviously, the biggest one and headlining this offseason, apart from Macklin Celebrini, is Matvei Michkov coming over from Russia for the Flyers, getting drafted, not this year, but the year prior. And he's been everything that everyone kind of thought. He's looked awesome in the preseason. He leads the preseason in points. He has 3 goals, 3 assists. His expected goals for in those 3 games, about 1.64. That's individually. So creating a lot of offense on his own. Logan Stankoven has been insane. I think he's played every game for the Stars and has played the most out of anyone, any player in the preseason so far. He has like 70 minutes of ice time, I believe. He has 22 shots on goal, though. That's a lot. He also has 5 points, 2 goals, and it's created a ton of offense. Celebrini has played 1 game to this point. This is being recorded Monday morning. 1 goal, 1 assist, 19 minutes. Probably pretty solid from what I saw. Laine Hudson looks really good. I know a lot of people are, especially Habs, are trying to get him on that first power play unit instead of Mikey Matheson. How early will that switch come? I don't think it'll be the start of the season, but still something to kind of hope for there. But really good to see all these rookies kind of lighting it up. If I'd have to say, I'd probably keep these guys right at bay because we still don't know. If you want to take the risk on Michkov, go for it. I'm still worried about how he's going to fit into the Tortorella playing system and like the mind games that Tortorella plays. I think that's always going to be a factor. And maybe I'm just more scared of it than I should be, but I think I'm looking at Stankoven and Celebrini over Michkov. All right, looking at the New York Rangers, Panarin and Ryan Lindgren both suffered injuries last week. Panarin seems to be nothing serious. You know, he's day-to-day with a lower body injury. Should be back soon. He'll be ready for opening night. Ryan Lindgren, out longer, should miss opening night, probably out for a couple weeks here. Where we saw Laviolette have the defensive pairings with Lindgren out. He had Connor Mackey on that first pair with Adam Fox. Now, with Ryan Lindgren out, doesn't change a whole lot fantasy-wise because Adam Fox is that guy on that pair defensively. Ryan Lindgren is more of obviously the defensive focused. Connor Mackey can be that player. I think Ben Harper's another option there, but this is more of a Rangers injury update. 2 bigger the names of the injuries that came into it, but fantasy hockey-wise, this doesn't carry a ton of relevance. All right, the last point we're going to touch on is Maxim Tsyplakov on the New York Islanders, coming over from KHL. The KHL last year had 31 goals in the KHL, an Islanders prospect, a guy that the Islanders have been very excited for in training camp. Patrik Roy started him on that 4th line, and he's been playing very solid. Patrik Roy has had really good things to say about him. Simon Holmstrom started in the top 6, a position where, Tsyplakov thought he could have been, but then Holmstrom now being moved, they're changing it a little bit. Patrik Roy now want to see what Tsyplakov can do on that second line with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, which we'll see in a couple preseason games for this week. So keep an eye on that. He's a guy that's relatively developed already, a really good passer, has a really good shot. He's a little slow. He's not the fastest skater, but playing with Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri, I think could be a pretty good setup for this Islanders team. I think he'll be pretty valuable if he gets some power play time as well. He's relatively crafty and creative. So definitely a guy to keep your eye on. Patrik Roy, Brock Nelson, a lot of the Islanders veteran forwards have had a lot of good things to say about him. He's worth, if preseason goes this week well for him on this top 6 line, definitely worth a flyer at the end of your drafts, I would say. But definitely a guy you want to keep your eye on, even for maybe if you're looking to bet like a Calder Trophy long shot. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of this week's updates for NHL Week 2 preseason and training camp. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.